People love to talk about the dream of retiring in Italy. Slower pace, calmer life, lower costs of living, better food, long walks, universal healthcare. You know what? On paper, it makes a lot of sense. Italy does have socialized healthcare. If you qualify, you're covered. You can go to the doctor for free, as people like to say. It's not free. And even if you don't qualify, the cost is significantly lower than it is in the United States. A specialist visit that might cost you thousands of dollars in the United States might just cost you a few €100 in Europe. Medication is cheaper, emergency care will not bankrupt you. So the dream gets sold hard, but growing old in a white country as a Black woman actually leaves a lot to be desired. And it's not because the system is cruel in obvious ways. It's because the system was never built with Black women in mind. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And let's get into my notes on why it is that I pay thousands of euros in doctor's fees, even though I qualify for socialized healthcare. When people hear racism in healthcare, they usually imagine extremes. Doctors who refuse to treat you, open hostility, slurs, neglect that actually feels intentional. But that is not how it usually shows up in Italy. Here, racialization in healthcare is far quieter. It's more polite, it's more passive. It starts to look like lack of experience or lack of curiosity, lack of imagination. It looks like doctors who have been trained to never seriously think about Black bodies, and therefore they don't. Black bodies are not centered in European medical education. We are outliers, deviations from the assumed norms, edge cases that don't get explored deeply because the system was designed around white European bodies as default. And that has consequences. Let me explain to you how healthcare actually works here. You don't just decide to see a specialist. You go to your general doctor first, your medico di base. He will evaluate you and refer you out to a specialist if he deems necessary. Say your general doctor actually recommends a specific specialist, then you have to see that doctor privately. So you will pay at least out of pocket 100 to 200 euros per visit. Sometimes it can be more. Now, if you go through the public system, you do not get to choose a doctor. You are assigned a specialist who fits the description and who has availability. So basically you're rolling the dice on who you see. And of course, sometimes the dice can roll badly. So I have been noticing that I've been experiencing some hair thinning and changes in my scalp. So anyone who understands Black hair and Black skin understands that these conditions could be autoimmune, hormonal, or signs of something deeper and not yet seen. So I did what I was supposed to do. I called my general doctor. He made a recommendation for a specialist, and I went through the public system. I waited 2 weeks for a rushed appointment, and I was met by a man who could not have been less interested in my case. He offered me some generic explanations about afro-textured hair and chemical straighteners, about damage, about relaxers. And when I told him that I was natural, no chemicals, he gave me a very educated. He shrugged, not metaphorically, but actually shrugged. No follow-up questions, no curiosity, no alternative theories, no attempts to think with me. Just, I don't know what to tell you. That shrug was not ignorance. It was disengagement. People will tell you Italian healthcare is good, and in many ways it is. There are definitely brilliant doctors here, kind doctors, dedicated doctors. But I have noticed something very consistent. Many of them lack imagination. And I don't mean creativity in the poetic sense. I mean the ability to challenge what they already know. If your case fits neatly within the parameters they've been trained on, white, European, statistically common, they can definitely handle that. It's the outliers that don't get investigated deeply. And Black bodies in Europe still get treated as outliers. Medically, not just socially. That is not accidental, that is historical. Modern European medicine developed alongside colonial expansion, racial science, eugenics, and anthropological classification. Black bodies were studied, measured, experimented on, but not cared for. Difference was framed as pathology and not variation. That legacy doesn't disappear just because the system is publicly funded. It lives in what doctors are trained on, what data exists, whose pain is considered typical, and whose symptoms are seen as anomalies. So when a Black woman presents symptoms that do not align with white European baseline, the system often stalls and fails. Not with cruelty, but with confusion. And confusion becomes neglect. I have had 3 children, 1 in the United States and 2 in Italy, all public health care. And the differences were not subtle. When I had my son in the United States, I was on public health care. One doctor followed me throughout my entire pregnancy. That same doctor met me at the hospital. He delivered my baby. He followed my aftercare. The hospital was modern and I had a private suite the entire time. I could have up to 3 people of my choice in the delivery room with me. It was not luxury, it was continuity of care, and that actually matters. My first pregnancy in Italy was actually very nice. It was manageable, probably only because I was never alone. I didn't speak Italian at the time, and somebody from my husband's family was always with me, even if he could not be there. Every hospital visit, every interaction, the doctors were kind, efficient, and professional. But I had no idea who would deliver my baby once I got to the hospital. I was lucky with my first son because the woman who delivered him was just so kind and gentle, and it was the most calming experience in childbirth I could have imagined. However, my second pregnancy was a completely different story and experience. It was one of the most stressful medical experiences of my lifetime. I cried regularly, and it was not because of hormones. It was because of the lack of support from the medical system. My concerns were minimized. I had to change doctors. I had to change my first doctor because she refused to do certain procedures because of her moral standing in respects to abortion. And I didn't want to have an abortion. However, I did want to have an amnio test. And because there was risk of abortion, she wouldn't write me the script to see the doctors that could perform the procedure. I had to find a completely new doctor during very stressful periods of time, just from refusal of care. She wouldn't even recommend another doctor to me. Imagine seeing a doctor for months and then being refused care because you're choosing a procedure that they feel morally obligated to deny. The facilities are much older in Italy. Rooms are actually shared until active labor, and your family is not allowed to wait with you. I was actually at the hospital by myself during my first pregnancy, waiting for active delivery, and they sent my husband home. The moment that still haunts me with my last pregnancy is that some doctors were actually afraid to deliver my baby. And I still don't even know why. There was no explanation. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know if something was wrong. I didn't know if I was in danger. My partner had to yell at the doctors for someone to do something and stop running around in circles like unsupervised children. Only then did a doctor step in, a woman who was more like a German drill sergeant. And mind you, she was competent, but this was not a good experience at all. I won't even get into the aftercare. Now imagine aging in this system, menopause, autoimmune issues, cardiovascular changes, bone density, skin conditions, hair changes, all filtered through limited Black medical data. Doctors completely unfamiliar with Black presentation, a system that defaults to normal without questioning who's normal. Growing old isn't just about access, to healthcare. It's about being seen as medically intelligible, and too often Black women are not. This isn't just my story. Black women across Europe report symptoms being dismissed, pain being minimized, anxiety being medicalized, physical issues being psychologized. And because the system is so polite, people assume that it's fair. Politeness is not equity. Italy is beautiful. Slower life matters. Community matters. But the retirement fantasy being sold does not account for race. It assumes that your body will be legible, your pain will be recognized, your aging will be familiar. For Black women, that assumption is dangerous. So when people say that they want to grow old in Italy, I always ask myself, at what cost? Because healthcare isn't just about coverage. It's about curiosity, competence across difference, and systems willing to evolve. Italy has not done that work yet. And until it does, growing old here as a Black woman will require advocacy, private care, vigilance, and a willingness to pay for what should already be understood. That's not a dream, but perhaps it's just surviving with better scenery. Guys, if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. I look forward to having this discussion with you in the comments. So, ciao, ciao for now.